Hey, what's up, guys? Node Investor here. Are we there yet? That's what everybody wants to know. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? What's up, guys? I hope everyone is having a pleasant weekend. Here, finally. I was hoping to do this earlier in the day, and then I was reminded that I had some earlier appointments in my morning. I said, oh, yeah, I guess I got to do that first. So took care of that, but looking all right, not doing too bad here today. I hope you guys are doing well. It's a beautiful day outside here locally, sunny, warm, definitely feels like springtime. And looking at some charts, looking at some setups here, and I was doing some market scans earlier and started to see some signs, good signs. But is Bitcoin done? Are we done going down? That's what I want to talk about. The short answer is I don't think so, but hey, we got to see. We got to see. Node Connect. That's funny right there. So this live stream is for you guys, and I will quickly cover some of the biggies, and then we will go into some chart reviews. I will take a look at some of the names that you guys want to take a look at. And so hold the comments that way so I can keep up. And when I do the kind of the big names, we'll go ahead and we'll get going. And I'll start answering questions. I'll look at some charts and we'll go from there. So appreciate everybody joining here on this Saturday, Sunday, wherever you may be, whatever time it is. Thanks for being here. I know we got folks from all over. We always do. That's awesome. We got people from all parts of the globe. And I am honored to be your host today. So let's take a quick look at the charts here. So this is a BTC on Bitfinex, the 4-hour chart. If you caught the stream yesterday, I kind of went through BTC a little bit more in depth, talking about the different levels that I'm looking for to see some signs of a low. Ultimately, this 4-hour chart here, though, the 10 EMA has been to the wall, and we need to see some break to the upside. Confirmation would be getting above 7,200, 7,300. That's the ballpark zone that I'm looking at. So, hey, man, we got a lot of Europeans in the house today. But so that's the level that I'm looking at here. Now, the plus and the minus. So looking at the good first, the low that we had here a day or two ago had some very strong volume that came in there right at the lows. And so that's a good sign. The fact that the lowest bar was a big reversal bar, had some strong volume coming in. But at this point, it's just kind of the bounce off the oversoldness, right? It's kind of what it felt like. And so that's just what I'm seeing there. But you have another one here. You've got another big strong bar that we saw yesterday. Looked like we were going to start moving higher, pulling in a little bit. Volume is a little lighter, so not too bad. We just started this new 4-hour bar about a half an hour ago. And so you can't really count the volume on that one. It's kind of meaningless at this point. But not strong from a chart indicator perspective. Look, RSI only bounced up to 40. That's pretty weak right now. My proprietary bull momentum index here, it's still living below what I would consider the bull zone, 65 to 70 or higher. Ideally, you want it to be above 75, but even can't even get above that. And so on the 4-hour chart, it feels like a little bit of a bounce, and until we get the upside confirmation, that's all it is at this point. So I'm still sitting tight here a little bit, waiting for this thing to play out. On the daily chart, I mentioned yesterday, sub 30 RSI is where I think we would see a little bit of a washout low. Let me clear those arrows for you guys. We are a little stretched from the 10 EMA, but unless we have a big snapback right away, it just feels like the chart's pausing a little bit, letting this moving average catch up, and we got to go from there. So volume here at the low was, again, the highest that we've seen here in weeks. And so that's on Bitfinex. How does that look on some of the others here? So that's not the one. Yeah, so this was not quite the low. Coinbase has some kind of sporadic volume patterns. So I don't use the volume there quite often. And yeah, the volume, as far as the normal weekend volume, I've noticed lately it has gotten a little quieter on the weekends, especially on kind of the Saturday, early Sunday, and then the Asian markets come online my Sunday, midday, afternoon, and that's when I've noticed they start to pick up again. So kind of like Friday, Saturday, it is a little bit quieter than most other days. But so yeah, I mean, that's kind of the low here. Right now, we're still pulling in a little bit. Not a lot of upside yet. So again, the levels to watch near term, getting that 7,200, 7,300 up to the upside. On the downside, if you missed yesterday's stream, I was talking about, hey, if we have that climactic selling, which is, sometimes the way it ends, unfortunately, it's pretty rare that it kind of ends this way, where it's kind of like we come down, we start meandering. Things don't tend to end quietly, unfortunately. It tends to be this dramatic, almost scary, either up or down, and then it's over, right? It's kind of one of those. And so what I'm still seeing as a potential is what we saw back here, right, where you see the drift lower, 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 and it just gets really painful. And then you get the smackdown where it drops really fast in a short period of time. And then that tends to mark the low, especially if there's climactic volume. Does it mean we got to go all the way to 6K? Not necessarily, right? You could see a single day washout where you see kind of like the reversal, and then we go higher on strong volume. Those are nice. I like those over the kind of drift lower and then crash. But we could see some combination of that. The current daily bar still has 3 hours and 20 minutes left in it. And so there's still plenty of time. But just because it's Saturday, holiday in a lot of places, it's going to feel a little quieter. But hey, this is crypto, man. You guys have I've had to come on the mic at midnight on Saturday because things were getting crazy. So you just never really know. But that's kind of what I'm looking for. I'm still just watching. Right now, we're kind of in no man's land as far as I'm concerned on the daily chart. Either we need to break higher, and I'm okay just waiting for that, or we need to have one more washout lower. And so I'm sitting tight. That's BTC. And unfortunately, BTC is going to influence so much of the other charts that I'm seeing, but I'm seeing some more positive setups on a lot of the alts. And so that's what I'm watching here. Let's go to some of the other biggies here first. Looking at F, mentioned this one. It's at a long time support level. We had this big ascending triangle base that broke out late last year, and the breakout point was around that $400 range. And you can see we've basically retraced fully right back to that point here, and we're sitting there right now, very oversold on all accounts here. RSI hit 19 just a couple of days ago versus BTC. Similar story, similar pattern here, just has been grinding its way lower. At one point was over 1/10 of BTC price, and here we are half of that now, right? So has had a very deep pullback, and this one too is kind of at a support level breakout point in that area versus BTC. And so I'm keeping a good eye on ETH here, just because I'm thinking we're near a low on longer term basis. And so that's what I'm watching here on both BTC and USD pairs. But you can see here on the daily chart, look at that wick here. It just had that rally, basically didn't even get to the 10 EMA and is pulling back in. And so it's not ready yet, but the signs are starting to show up. You're seeing the big volume here. This is the 4 hour, just some accumulation starting to show up a little bit, but we got to see upside confirmation. Until we get that, or we get the big final washout, then I'm gonna have to sit tight and just wait for this thing to play out. From a longer term perspective, though, I really like ETH here. Longer term, anywhere from 3 down to this base here would be around 350. So between 400 and 350, I think is a good place to look at ETH from a longer term perspective. So that's kind of the top of my list right now as far as the big cap names go. Here's Litecoin, similar story. This, from a support perspective, if it doesn't hold this low $100 range, 100, 105, 110, kind of in that ballpark, then that's not going to be a good break, because if it breaks $100, then you can see a pretty quick sell-off. Maybe 80 bucks, 90 bucks is kind of what I'm watching. But this one too, very oversold, kind of down here, but they can stay down there for a little bit. Versus BTC, a little bit odder of a pattern, not very distinct in terms of support resistance levels. As you can see, they have these big sharp sell-offs. Overall, just kind of flat, really, in the big scheme of things. So just sitting here, but you can see this one too. The 10 EMA on the daily just continues to be that wall that just can't seem to get above here. So those are the ones to look at here. Again, they're very oversold. So even a quick bounce, I mean, look at this daily chart. Even a bounce into the 10 EMA, that's a 15% move on Litecoin USD. So that's pretty significant. You know, that's a pretty decent bounce. Even if it just moves up and hits that as a wall, the next resistance level above the 10 EMA is around 140, 150. So, you know, from here up to there, that's 26%. And so you've seen those moves in the past, even during a bear trend where you have these massive kind of counter trend rallies. And they provide for some nice shorter term trading, but you can see that that's, you know, still only bumping into resistance there. So they're one to watch here. I think they're definitely hitting some critical points in the longer term perspective. Let me go through a couple of names that I'm liking here, some setups that I'm seeing, some strength that's showing up, and then we'll get to the names that you guys want to take a look at here. So let's go through a couple of these here. Lumens showing some good action here. Stellar Lumens. Let me find it on my list. If not, I'll punch it in here. I know I have it. I'm staring at it. Here it is. So looking at Lumens, I've already kind of drawn the lines here for you guys, but on the daily chart, you can see this is kind of the resistance point that it tested earlier. But what I'm liking here is the volume action at the lows. Let me clear these lines first, and I'll come back to that. But you can see we've had this big pullback, and then you had that big reversal bar here about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. And we had this rally, but couldn't really get above that 10 EMA for a whole long. And now we're bouncing back up there. And on the daily chart, you can see this bull momentum index is starting to poke higher here. Strong volume off the lows. If you go to the shorter term time frames, the 4 hour looks much stronger. And in fact, this is a kind of a pocket pivot indicator that we use. But you can just see here, big volume moves, kind of basing out here a little bit, and then clearing this resistance here on very strong volume. And so one to start keeping an eye on here. You can see that move basically went up to this prior high here from a couple of days ago, and it's kind of pulling back, but the volume's lighter here. So this is what I'm going to be watching. If the volume continues to dry up as it pulls back into this zone, letting this moving average catch up, holding above that breakout point, then those are the levels to watch on Lumens. But this one's looking pretty good here at the lows. Let's see here. Another one to look at is Status, another one that's showing some interesting action here at the lows. And so SNT is the ticker there, but you can see we've had a couple of moves higher. A couple of weeks ago, had that move off the lows, or a couple of days ago, pulled right back, set up a little bit of a higher low, big base here, and then moving up. And right now it's tested that breakout point and started to move higher. So this is SMT on the 4 hour charts. And you know, it's real interesting to see some of these names. Look at this volume, just really odd. And there's a few other names like this you'll see here, but let me show you this here. But you can see where the volume was just massive back here, and then it just went nowhere, just dried up. And then all of a sudden, just huge volume. I mean, I'm not even sure what's driving that, if it's bot trading or what, but apparently it's seeing the volume come back in. And we've seen a few other names. I think Elf was one of those that had real odd volume patterns that just kind of was huge and went away. Yeah, you can see this one, similar pattern, just kind of went away, and then here it is coming back. And so you're seeing some real interesting patterns there. But nonetheless, S&P, the volume there looks pretty interesting. A lot of accumulation starting to show up. This one is starting to move higher versus BTC. If you go to the 4 hour chart, I'm liking the way this is set up, and really just kind of broke out now. And there's two ways to look at that, right? This is a breakout. You can see it retested this and is trying to move higher. And getting above here on a closing basis would be the official kind of breakout there. So this one's setting up nice, probably buyable here with the stop just below this range, in my opinion. So I'm going to be taking a look at the SNT here. Binance, I'm a broken record when it comes to Binance, but I continue to point it out to you guys because it has been one of the stronger names. And so here's the 4-hour Binance versus BTC, and just kind of stair-stepping its way higher. You can almost argue this is forming a little bit of a cup and handle on the 4-hour charts. With this rounding out, we'll see how deep this pullback goes on the right-hand side here, with the breakout point being very clear here on the BTC side. And so looking at the BNB still, looking at it from a USD pair, also looks really good here. Let me go to Binance USD. That's Bcash. So Binance USD had that prior breakout around that $10 mark, a little bit higher, rallied right up to resistance at 14, which was this prior consolidation back here. That's where we saw the profit taking in the pullback start taking place. Of course, the BTC sell-off also drove part of that. But we're finding some support around that $10 mark again. And here we are trying to move higher on the 4-hour charts above the moving average right now, pulling back in. So it's starting to set up again. And you can see it on the BTC pair. It's forming a potential cup and handle there on that 4-hour chart. So BNB is definitely on my watch list right now. Let me see here. Let me go through my list. 0x. That one is ever since that Coinbase announcement, it's still doing relatively well. And so this was the big spike on the GDAX Coinbase support of ERC20 tokens. 0x, for a lot of reasons, has shot up in it, in response to that news. But you can see this was kind of the breakout point. We had that strong move up and then just kind of really gave it up and consolidated. But you can see there's trying to hold a low here above that point and starting to turn the corner a little bit. So keeping an eye on this one. Not really actionable yet, but it's starting to look good, especially on the daily chart. You can see this was a strong move, very constructive, low volume pullback right to the 10 EMA on the daily. And so forming a little bit of a bull flag now. Got to see some upside follow through, but this one's looking pretty good on the daily. And so got to keep an eye on this one. Looks like it's put in a very good long-term bottom from the big picture versus BTC. And it's still up about 49-50% from that low point. And so 0x is still looking good. 0x USD pair, not quite as clear of a pattern here, still kind of drifting lower here. So I'm watching more of the BTC equivalent on this one. Let me go through a few more of these. Finance, we covered Vibe. This has had a very long, drawn-out pullback. This is Vibe on the daily, but I've been paying attention to this because in these big volume spikes, even though none of them have really stuck yet, is starting to catch my attention here. But it's starting to show a little bit more strength here in the near term. Here is on the 4-hour. So that's just, it's kind of pulling back. There's no upside confirmation yet, but when you start to see those big spikes of volume there, you got to pay attention to that. Could be signs of accumulation, but just wait for the trend break, really, is what you got to do on those. Let me go through Verge. Has been strong as of late. And so last couple of days, just starting to stair step its way higher here. You're seeing these big volume spikes to the upside and then kind of just cools off and then another big volume spike. And so from a longer term perspective, this one is just a lot choppier, certainly much more volatile than a lot of these other names. But looks like it may have finally turned the corner here with a lot of volume coming in here in the last week or so. Now, this big red reversal bar is not pretty. And so that one's kind of the red flag for me there. But that aside, I mean, it's not bad if you look at the 1-hour charts, right? That was a big green bar when it finished higher ultimately. But on the daily bar, it just kind of didn't look very healthy there. So Verge, definitely one to keep an eye on here in the coming week. Vertcoin. I know you got some Vertcoin fans out there. I don't hold any Vertcoin, but maybe potentially trying to put in a little bit of a double bottom here. So keeping an eye on Vertcoin. It's still not above the 10 EMA. It's got to convince me here first, but I'm watching this level of support that it's trying to form here. You can also see there is a bullish divergence coming in on the RSI here with this first low, the rally, the second low, much stronger RSI. And so vert. Now, what I'd like to see is some upside near term getting above that 10 EMA. And then ultimately, it won't confirm the double bottom until it gets to that point. But that's a decent move away from now anyway. I mean, just confirming the double bottom is a 25 to 30% move higher. Even a bounce into resistance here is a pretty strong bounce. So keeping an eye on this one here in the coming week. Let me go through a few more, and it looks like you guys got a good list here that I'm going to walk through. We see ELF. I mentioned ELF here briefly, talking about the volume patterns, but let's go take a look at that one. Again, the volume is kind of odd. Went real quiet for a long time, starting to see the volume starting to come back in. But this is the level I'm watching for a potential breakout. And this is the daily chart, keep in mind. So this is a longer term, not longer term, but it's not the hourly chart. So you're talking a couple of weeks of kind of basing out here, maybe even forming a little bit of a inverted type of head and shoulder pattern. But that's the breakout point nonetheless, the neckline, if you will, around that 8,700 mark or so. Closing above that would be very good, especially if the volume starts coming in there. Zooming in a little bit here in the near term, going to the 4-hour chart, you can see here there's a lot stronger volume patterns now as of late. So certainly hasn't broken out yet, but I'm starting to keep an eye on this one too, just because of some of the action I'm seeing here. And so let me point out what I mean by the accumulation pattern. So off the lows, first of all, that big red bar was a reversal bar, high volume. And then you see these big green spikes to the upside as the price moves higher. And those are good signs of accumulation as it's starting to come off the lows here with a lot of volume supporting it. So looks like it may have found a good low, at least in the intermediate term here. So keeping an eye on this one, but I want to see this thing break out above this line and start turning the corner here. And let's do a couple of the biggies here as of late. EOS, very strong. EOS, where's he at? So EOS BTC just continues to march higher after finding a pretty decent low here, middle of March, and has been one of the more resilient names here, even with this pullback we saw a couple of, over the last week versus Bitcoin. A lot of these alts, got hit pretty hard, but EOS looking pretty good, continues to march higher, and got to keep an eye on this one. Just, they're doing some big developments here in the coming months. Could be a big year for EOS, and near term, definitely one of these stronger names from a relative strength perspective. So I'm watching this one. I think it needs to pull back a little bit here on this daily chart, maybe come down to the prior high in and around here. So that's not a lot, but from current levels, that's a good 7%, maybe a little bit more if it overshoots to the downside, but still looking pretty good here. EOS USD is just sitting real tight because it's outperforming Bitcoin. Bitcoin's dropping. The dollar chart has just kind of been relatively sideways for the last couple of days or so. So watching this one, this is why I think we might see a little bit of a pullback, because if it can't break out of this here pretty soon, you might see a little bit of a dip first. But EOS is definitely one of the stronger names out there right now. Cardano, looking at Cardano, another big name. Also another name that looks like it may have finally put in a big long-term bottom here. We saw that very oversold low that we had about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. It doesn't look like it on this chart, but that was a decent rally. Let me zoom in here. And we saw a very nice rally off of the lows, like we saw in a lot of names. But, I mean, that was a 40% plus move, in basically a day and a half. So very strong. Then we had the big pullback, and here it is. You can see turning the corner again, established a higher low. Had like a little bit of a double bottom here, and now we're going higher. Volume is starting to come in a little bit. So from a long-term perspective, I'm liking Cardano here. I'm thinking it's finally found a low, a good low here in the intermediate term. We'll see some upside confirmation when it breaks above that 2,400 zone or so. That's still another 10% higher from here. But in the big scheme of things, that's not really that much, especially considering how much it's come down, right? This guy was down like 80% from the highs. So it has had a huge pullback versus BTC. And I'm thinking it's ready to start moving again, or at least start consolidating in this zone and building a pretty good base. So that's the one I'm going to keep an eye on here. So let me go through your comments and see how we did. So we did EOS, Cardano. I have not done Neo or Ontology. I'll take a look at those. Nebula, I'll take a look at Nebula. I haven't looked at that one in a little bit. And looks like you got a pretty good list coming in here. So, okay. Icon, let's take a look at that one first. That one has had a pretty deep pullback here. Looking at the Icon. Now, Icon, without looking at the chart, I already know because I was doing some analysis here, has basically retraced right back to the 618 level on the fib levels. So this will kind of help paint the picture a little bit. So we had that low and very strong move off the low, pulling in, and right now it's right at the 618 level. So if it's going to bottom out here, this is where it needs to do it here the next day or so, right? This is the daily chart. And so I'm watching this one now, but it needs to have a pretty decent reversal. If you go to the 4-hour charts, still no signs of that low, and we're just waiting for this downtrend to be broken, but it's at a key level right now. So I'd like to see this one, see some reversal volume show up. On the 4-hour chart, the RSI has definitely cooled off a lot. You guys remember me talking about Icon up here, a little bit of a bullish divergence I was seeing, and I didn't expect it to pull back quite that much. I was thinking we should see a pause, a small pullback, but this one has had a pretty good pullback. So it's right back to the 618 level. I like this one long term. I'm still a fan of the project, and I think they're going to continue to do well. And so in the near term, this is the area to keep an eye on in and around this zone, see if it can find some sort of a low and then start to see a reversal. But just I'm watching this downtrend and really just waiting for that to break. All right, let me go through a few more of these. Tron. Tron. You know, it's really hard to get bullish about Tron when you look at their CEO or founder or whatever his name is, his Twitter and just the stuff he says. Man, it's like, come on, dude. But anyway, let's go look at Tron and make fun of Tron for a second here. I have traded it and I was bullish on Tron for a few days. I don't hold Tron long term, and right now it just starting to sell off. There was some anticipation of the test net or the main net, you know, all that fun stuff going on, and I think it was just a little bit of a sell the news type of scenario. So you're seeing some of that. It's definitely breaking trend, big volume coming in on the sell. That's usually a sell signal for me, or a warning flag. So if I was still holding it, you know, definitely protecting profits. I'm not holding any Tron right now. So right now it looks like the trend is going to continue lower in the near term. Now, as far as where it could find some support, going back to that daily chart, you know, it's broken right through that moving average, and it's basically right at the breakout point. So if it's going to find some support, it's got to do it here really soon. It's pulled right back to the breakout point. You can see the big green bar with the volume that came in was right there. And it's not unusual to see a throwback to the breakout point. So you had that big rally, big volume reversal near the top, and now we're seeing the selling coming in. And this is where you're going to want to see it bottom out. Otherwise, it'll just be another one of these kind of flash in the pan moves for this name, right? You've seen this in the past where it had these big moves and it just kind of gives it up, and you've seen it back here, you've seen it back here. Tradable rallies for sure. This was one of the stronger ones though, and so you got to pay a little bit more attention to it now, in my opinion, just because, you know, these are short-lived little moves. This one had a little bit more meat to it, and right now it's right back at the breakout zone. So a little bit below, but not much. You know, the 470 is kind of the area I'd be watching. All right, let's go through Neo, and then we'll do Ontology. And so Neo, sitting around that $50 Neo, $49 right now, starting to hit these extreme oversold levels on this daily chart. You can see the RSI is sitting down here at 27. A couple of weeks ago, it went down to 25, 26. And so it's right back there. That's unfortunately the only positive now. There's not a lot of buy volume showing up, but just the fact that it's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And if this closes red, it'll be 10 over the past 11 days has been red. And that's following a prior pretty big red streak here. And so just the last month for NEO has not been positive, has given up a lot of the gains we saw. Now, the thing to keep an eye on NEO, though, is it's right back at a long-term support level. So this is NEO USD. You can see the prior high that we had early mid last year was around that $50 mark. We had the big pullback, and then we had this huge base that developed over the course of the year, and then into the end of the year broke out above that $50 mark, with the lower end of the base being around 40. So, that's the range that I really want to see NEO bottom out. It's probably a good accumulation zone in my opinion. And so that, mid 40s to $50 mark, basically where it's at now, is the level we're going to want to see NEO hold in terms of a longer term support level. Versus BTC, definitely just kind of in no man's land. We had this huge run up here, NEO BTC, and very little pauses. The last big base, if you even want to call it that, was about a week and a half of consolidation around here. We're still a ways up from there. So that's still 30% lower. So other than that, I'd really be watching the USD pair for a little bit more guidance on this one. Let's do a fib analysis on this guy here. We're right at the 618 level here versus Bitcoin. So might not be a bad place for it to pause here. It'd be nice to see some break to the upside here on the BTC chart. So that's probably the better support level. And that also happens to correspond with this little, I guess you could say, pause. I mean, it was a 2-day dip and then this rally higher. So that's really the most clear level of support here on NEO near term. And so not bad, actually. NEO here versus dollar looks pretty decent, sitting right above support on the BTC pair, right at the 618 level. This, you can say, is probably a little bit of support. So be watching NEO here, see if we can get a good bounce off this area. Zoom in a little bit. NEO 4-hour, let's try to set up here. I'd be watching short term a break above that 744 level or so, which is not that much higher here. That could move right through that relatively quickly. It's only 2%, so we could see a pretty good pop from there, and that would really start to turn the corner here, change the momentum. NEO. All right, ontology. Looking at the ONT, and this one. So here's the good news, and here's the bad news. Obviously, it's been very hyped as of late and has been on the radar of a lot of people. This is a younger chart, so the good news is I think it has room to grow. Market cap perspective, it's kind of up there now, but not like in the billions yet, but it's up there, right? It's quickly gone to 500 million and has had a big run in a relatively short time. But what I'm watching here, after this big run, right now it kind of looks like a little bit of a double top is forming. But you got to remember, after a strong run, you want to see some continuation patterns. And so what I'm going to be watching for is more of the ascending triangle potentially forming. And what we're going to want to see is a higher low established than this low here. And then that could go on to form a series of higher lows, which will form, if that plays out, a very nice ascending triangle pattern. And so that would be a good kind of resting accumulation pattern that would set up for another leg. And so got to keep an eye on this one here. Still clear breakout points right around that that 34K, 35K area. But if we continue to set up these higher lows, that's going to look very positive here, especially with the volume drying up as this thing consolidates and following this big run. It needs a consolidation, and that would give it some more legs for it to continue higher. So 100% move higher, and we're seeing a pretty good break pause right now. So still looks good, but I think it just needs a little time. See here. Radio silence. I'm just going through the the comments here. Hold on here. After tax day, maybe that's the bottom. Maybe. I think April's the bottom, though. Either way, I'm telling you guys, April. Let's see here. So I'm going through some of these here. All right. Let's go OMG. So OMG, unfortunately, is not looking. It's not looking too strong here, and I'm not liking this series of higher lows on this daily chart on the USD pair. It's just kind of marked, kind of turning the corner for sure. Now, what we're going to want to see is this support level here hold above that $7 mark, and if it doesn't, I mean, that's just going to be a big break, long-term break. You can see we had this low here around that $5-6 mark, but this was a very strong low here in mid-February, and so you got to keep an eye on this. Now, certainly a BTC sell-off, a little washout could take it down in the short run, but unless it's a big reversal, it's not looking that good. Now, I like this project long-term. The development, some of the stuff they're doing, just very good stuff, and they're really setting themselves up from a lot of perspectives, the Asian market, the whole payments thing. And so I'm not writing this one off, but just in the near term, it just looks like it's not that strong right now, and I really want to see some reversal action take place on this guy. What's the market cap on this guy? G has come down to 832 million, so it's still up there quite a bit, but it's definitely not where it used to be, and you can see it's had this kind of just long pause. I mean, just up, down, just kind of all over the place here. So just waiting this one out, in my opinion. I do have some OMG as a long-term hodl, but keep in mind this was like $2 OMG for me, so still up relatively speaking. Salt. That one looks like it's putting in a pretty decent bottom here. So looking at Salt, now this is fully retraced. If you go to the long-term chart of Salt here, we'll go to the ByteDance right now, but you can see it's basically right where it debuted, just lower, below that on the Bittrex side of things, but kind of forming a little bit of a double bottom here. And I showed you guys that on some of the other ones, right? Vert and some of that, and you see the same pattern here. You see this low, you see the rally, another low potentially forming here with the bullish divergence on that RSI. So got to start keeping an eye on these. It's looking pretty interesting here near term. I'm watching this one now. It looks like maybe, just maybe, has found a low. It's trying to break that downtrend at least, right? So you can see this downtrend that's been in play finally starting to go sideways a little bit. So that's the first step, and it's positive. If we start to see some upside movement, clearly a break of that 37K area, closing above that, it's going to be a good confirmation of this double bottom and the longer term trend changing here. So I'm liking Salt here. I'm liking the way it's setting up here. I don't think it's necessarily signaling any buy signals yet, but the action is positive. And if you go to the shorter term time frames here, you can see the accumulation that kind of just happened on this first leg up, pulling back a little bit. Volume is coming in here at the lows. So let's see if we can get another leg up on this one. Let's see here. Quantum. So this one here had that huge run. I wouldn't say huge, but it was nice. It was a good run. What was that? Yeah, it qualifies as huge, right? 67% in a couple of days. Not a bad move, but has seen that pretty deep pullback here. And let's see what I think that's at a fib level as well. It's basically held the low around that 618 level. This is Qtum versus BTC here, and so trying to find a low here, trying to hold out, but we need to see some break to the upside here. If you go to the dollar equivalent on this guy, let me go to Quantum USD. You can see this pullback has been much deeper, especially following that run. But gotta see this trend break. Now, a lot of this was driven by it being added on the USD pairing for Binance, and so that kind of drove and sparked a little bit of that initial interest. So now I'm just waiting to see if Was that a good low, or is that just another repeat of the action we saw back here where I had that big rally and then just never could follow through and just rolled over? Keep in mind, this was in February, and we all know what has happened between February and March. And so there was certainly a lot of overhead and headwinds there in the market. But if the market decides to put in a good low here, then this is the one to keep an eye on. But I'd be watching for a trend break here. It's all over. Sell. Let's see here. So it looks like some of you guys are asking about Bitcoin. Let's go take a look at BTC here real quick. I know we had some folks just joining us here, so we'll do a quick rehash of the BTC, and then we'll keep going on some of these other charts. So looking at Bitcoin here, the momentum has not followed through here on the upside. The level to watch near term, 72, 7,300. We got to get above that before we can start to turn the tides here a little bit. You can see we've had this high here, lower high. You know, we had this little bit of a bear flag here, broke down, bear pennants. We bounced, and over the last day or so, the action we've seen, in my opinion, just feels like a bounce. Doesn't feel like it's the big washout low. It just feels like we're kind of cooling off some of the oversoldness that we saw, and I'm still cautious that we might see another leg down. So got to keep an eye on that. I'm always open to both scenarios playing out. So you could have that washout reversal, but if you want upside confirmation near term, especially because a lot of these other names are just so oversold. I mean, ETH and Litecoin, right? They could bounce here relatively soon and have a decent bounce. But on the BTC side, 72, 7,300, that's the level to really watch. And on the downside, I already covered some of those key support areas. The first one being this February low around that 6K, 5,900 or so. That'd be the level to watch in terms of a strong support area. But it's not going to take a whole lot of selling to bring this RSI down to the sub 30 mark and kind of washes out. But got to keep an eye on the volume too. All right, let's keep going. But you can see going through the alts, some of these are setting up, right? So you can see that they're putting in double bottoms. They're trying to put in some bases here. Some of them are already moving up versus BTC. And so it's just going to be, you know, watching Bitcoin. And if this thing starts to turn the corner, then that could put a little bit more fire in some of those alts and get them going here. So keep an eye on those. Let me go through a few more with you guys. I had a list here. Hold on. Zill. Yeah, that's the one you guys were mentioning here. So let's take a look at that one. That one I've really been liking too. The setup here has been nice. Finally broke out above resistance here. You can see I had that line on the chart. Let me go to the 4-hour just because this is a younger chart, shorter history here. But this was the level I was watching. Broke out, good volume on that breakout. Had the throwback right to the breakout point. And those provide nice secondary entry points if you miss that initial breakout. And then you can see once it starts moving higher, kind of going up a little bit and just stair-stepping its way. Right now it's pulling in, but it's just right back at this little zone here. So very healthy action. Just kind of moves up slowly, takes a little pause, moves up, takes a little pause. So I'm liking the way this one's acting here. Outperforming versus Bitcoin. Needs to pause a little bit here. That's probably what we're going to see. And it's just kind of putting in a little series of ascending triangles and moving higher. So definitely one to keep an eye on. It's now above the ICO or the exchange debut price. And so that's a big milestone typically, because then, you know, you have fewer overhead resistance here at this point because more of the holders now are in profit and they're willing to hold. Hey, you're kind of at new highs. And at that point, there's no resistance. So that's very positive there. And so I'm liking this one. This one's looking pretty good here. What's the bunny token? Ooh, nah. What's the market cap on this guy here? Let's come up quite a ways here. So it's already at the 300 mil. So it's moving up. So we did Quantum, we did OMG, did Salt. Oh, Neblio, sorry about that. Somebody was asking about Neblio. I didn't forget about you. Oh, I did, but I just remembered. So Neblio, yeah. And so this one's interesting here. So I was watching a Neblio a couple weeks ago, and it was doing this, right? And it was just setting up, setting this base. A lot of volume was coming in here, just the accumulation. It was just one to definitely keep an eye on. And then it had a big breakout, and it moved quickly here. You can see on this this is the 1 hour chart. So it's relatively quick move. I'm up 40% in about 10 hours, and just got very volatile up here at this level, and kind of was all over the place. But now it's getting really tight again. It's kind of pulled right back in. See the yellow line? Right back to below that breakout point, and sitting real tight here. So I'm keeping an eye on this one now. Looks like it may want to set up for another run. If you go to the daily chart here, this is not confirmed yet. It had that big move and just kind of gave it all up. Ran right into resistance here. That's kind of the level I was watching, but we'll see. I don't think it's flashing any buy signals per se. On the sell side, if it doesn't hold this support here, the most recent lows from the March 20 area, then that's going to be a pretty decent break of support, because below that there is not much in terms of support until you go way down here. So break below that, you can see another 30-40% drop. So it needs to hold here and get some confirmation above this resistance point that it's been kind of living below here recently. Let's see here. So we did Binance Coin. I really like Binance, and keeping an eye on that one. It's one of the stronger names right now. I'm kind of scrolling through your notes here, your comments, guys. So let me catch up a little bit here. So we did Zill. Looks like I got to do Ethos, When, Siacoin. Let's take a look at some of those. So let's do this one first. Looking at the 4-hour chart of this one. This one's looking really good too. It's just kind of all over the place here on the 4-hour. Just the big volume was coming in, was looking good. Just starting to march higher, set up higher lows, and then just really gave all of that up. And if you go to the longer term charts here, you got to discount that big wick here, but you go to the daily charts, right? Just in the near term, it was just more of a little bit of a counter trend rally, but you can see where it ran right up to that downtrend line. And until it breaks that, you got to be suspect of any kind of sustained move to the upside. Got to see the downtrend broken, but it's trying to put in a low here. I mean, it's really battling in this little zone. So definitely one to keep an eye on. The volume has come back into this one. Like so many others, it's been so odd to see this. You had this big volume and then just really dried up for a while. And now here in recent weeks, seen a lot of volume coming back. So just kind of interesting to see that phenomenon playing out in a few names. But this one's trying to battle it out here. The big positive is this big volume spike off the lows, but it's got to hold this support here in the near term. And so you're kind of right there. That's the 27K level, in and around that point. Wham, we're going to have to go to here. Looking at this one, I know this one debuted. Everybody was watching it, had that big pullback, but it looks like it finally found a low here. Nice little setup here on this 4-hour chart. So you can see the big move higher and just pausing, almost putting in a little bit of a bull flag here. Nice little constructive pullback with volume declining as this thing pulls in, and it's coming right back to that 10 EMA on that daily chart. So that's, or on the 4-hour chart, excuse me. And that's what I look for when I see those big breakouts. I like to see these secondary entry points. You don't want it to retrace too much, but if it does, this is the must-hold level right here, this breakout point. If it does retrace below that, it's just going to invalidate that candle with the volume. So ideally, it needs to hold in and around that 46K level or so. Let's do a fib on this. Might be right there already. Yeah, so that 10 EMA sits right at the 382 level, so not bad. So I definitely keep an eye on this one here as it pulls back, and then look for that bounce off of the moving average there. Okay. We did look at BTC. So here's what I'll do. I know some of you guys joined late, and towards the end, I'll cycle through some of the big names again. And if you missed it, I did have a few on my list that I like that are looking pretty decent here or setting up. And I'll quickly cycle through some of those as well, but I'll cover the biggies for sure again. Saya. This one was interesting. I think on my last live stream last week, someone was asking about this one, and I was saying, man, this one looks actually pretty good here. I don't know what's driving this action here. A lot of volume was coming in off the lows. I didn't do any research on it, so I didn't know if there was news or any kind of announcement driving that, but you can see it's kind of had that pretty decent pullback here on lower volume. Is this one ever coming back? I don't know. I mean, I think there's certainly a market, and there's going to be room for one of these players in the distributed cloud, distributed computing space to definitely capture some market. But who's it going to be, right? That's the big question. So this one was one of the darlings of last year, had that mega run and just has not done a whole lot. So you can see this is just had a series of pullbacks, but we'll see. Near term, maybe it's found a low. I like the volume that's coming in, pulling in on lower volume, but got to see some more follow through to the upside here. IOTA. IOTA dollar first here. This one is right back at the low that it had from a couple of weeks ago. So it's sitting at a key support level. And the $1 mark for IOTA is, let me clear these other lines here. The $1 mark, it's a big psychological mark. One, it's similar to some of these other names, right? Like ETH and Dash and Neo, where they've had these big pullbacks to these big bases, these prior tops from last year. And it's right back there, right? After running all the way up to $5-6, has completely retraced, and it's right here. And this is a must-hold level. I mean, we got to find a base around here. You can see we've already bounced off of it once. It's pulling in, and it's looking positive, right? So far, it's a little bit of a bullish divergence here, so that's good. Maybe we form a double bottom. Even if it undercuts a little bit, it's got to rally, but that could make for a nice double bottom at a key support level. And so this is definitely a place to look at it or keep an eye on it from a longer term entry perspective, because if it can start to form a base here and bounce off, then that'll be good. But this was one of the first movers last week or a week and a half ago. We'll see if we can find some follow through. But right now, it's just got to break that downtrend. And I'm watching the USD pair on this one as my guide. The BTC pair, it's a little bit stronger. It had that rally. You can almost say, hey, maybe this is a little bit of a kind of a cup and handle type of pattern forming, but not as clean looking. And I think the USD pair would give a much clearer signal if it's going to start reversing here. Let me go through a few more of these. I'm gonna scroll back here through the comments. I think I've missed quite a few here. I'm going to scroll back and catch up and make sure I am catching all of you guys. I'm going to try to cover as many of these as I can. And if I miss one, it's because I didn't see it, so I apologize. Let's see. Nebulous. Interesting. We did ZIL. We did Salt. Zcoin. Let's do a few more of those here. Yeah, I was actually doing some research on Nebulous earlier here. This is a name from a while ago, and you can see it's had this this run here earlier in the year. It was just way up there, way overvalued in my opinion. I mean, it was 500 mil. It has come off quite a bit, but it's still here at the 180 level. And so let's go see if that's is that going to be in the charts here? I don't know if I'm going to get it here on these charts. Let me go this way. I may not be able to, my friends. Gonna have to pass on this one. But I mean, like a lot of these, though, it's finding this low point, trying to bounce, make a higher low. If it clears out this most recent high, so in this case, it'd be around that 675 mark, then you'll get some upside movement on that one. So we just did WAN, gas. Let's do Zcoin here. I'll take a look at gas. I haven't looked at gas. Zcoin, so smaller cap name for sure. You can see the just by the charts, right? It has that little choppier type of action here, but you know, was moving pretty good here a couple of weeks ago. You know, earlier in the year, just has this big downtrend, and I'm watching this one. I think it's a pretty interesting project, has some potential here, but the downtrend has not officially been broken yet. So that's really it on a lot of these names, is just watching this downtrend. Is it at a key support level? Yeah, you could say that. I mean, you can see this prior base before the breakout, right? That was pretty decent resistance point here. The other one was up here, but we're below that clearly. So this is kind of an important level to hold, in my opinion, if it needs to hold. But you've got these big reversals, but no upside yet. It's just been, you know, small movement. It is a smaller cap name too. What's this Zcoin sitting at these days? 129 million, so 130. So we looked at WAN, we looked at Merge, we looked at Salt, Quantum B. Ooh, Ethland. That one's interesting. Let's go take a look at the Ethland. So you can see I've been watching this one here, but just interesting to see the volume start coming in on this one too. So going to the 4-hour chart on Ethland, look at these big volume spikes. I mean, just it's a smaller cap name for sure. So you get that when any kind of volume shows up and it has that big move, but this one looks like it's being accumulated here a little bit. So, whoops. And so I'll be watching this one here. Ethland is trying to turn the corner. In the big picture, though, still very much not confirmed. We had that big pullback, basically retraced most of this entire move higher, and it's sitting here right at the lows, kind of trying to come off the lows here. Good news is, you know, it's looking more positive here, but until you get some upside confirmation, it looks like it's just a little bit of a bounce for now. Waves. Check out this. Got a couple of levels to watch here on waves. You know, there's a potential for a little bit of a falling wedge forming here. You can see the pattern really starting to narrow. But I'd be watching this lower trend line more than anything, just to see if it holds and then starts to go sideways here at least. On the upside, that downtrend is pretty clear. It needs to break above that. That's Waves BTC. Waves dollar, not real clear here in my opinion. Kind of broke below a key support area that I wanted it to hold around, you know, $6 or so, and now it's at the lower end of that. So not quite as strong, and really just needs to break that downtrend. Poly, let's go to Poly on KuCoin. The smaller cap name too. Was that like 30 mil or something like that? I've been watching this one for sure. Definitely keeping an eye on this one. It looked like it was trying to put in a pretty good low right here last week or 2 weeks ago. And right now it's trying again. Some volumes coming in here. Now this is a smaller cap name. It's not on any of the other exchanges yet. So if it does get added though to Bittrex or Binance or something, then I think it'll have a pretty decent move. At this point, it's just on KuCoin. Some other ones, but this is really where to watch it. But looks like it's trying to find another low here, but no bigger picture low yet, right? It's just kind of living below this declining moving average. It's bounce into that, bounce into that, bounce into that. So that's going to be the first step, is can we finally close above that moving average? And then the big resistance near term will be, you know, in and around that level. And I think that'll put it right back at around, based on current BTC prices, around 40, 50 cents or something like that. So what's this one at right now? Polymath sitting at 33.7 cents. And so kind of at the lows here. See if it can find a low eventually. We'll see if it's trying. It's trying. Let's see here. Polymath, EOS. We did EOS. We did WAN. Walton. Haven't done Walton. I did Verge, but I haven't done Storm. So let's do that one. So we're going to look at Walton here. Now, Walton, Walton's been a tough one, right? I think they're doing some good things. You know, one of the top names in the supply chain tracking RFID kind of camp, but you know, they had some publicity issues here and all that. But this has had a pretty decent pullback now. Let me see what the support level is at here. It's definitely below the key fib level, but yeah, just not broken that downtrend yet. This is the daily chart. You can see it's just this was the 1-day spike and reversal. But a lot of these are finally, at least, you know, they're kind of doing this where they had this downtrend and now they're kind of putting in a little bit of a support level that's been very clear, but they need to move higher, right? If they're going to confirm. Otherwise, it's just going to be a pause that sets up for another leg down. So a lot of these names that have that pattern set up, they need to really start to get above and move off of this support level. Because what tends to happen is the selling pressure is in place and you go sideways and you go sideways and you go sideways. And if it doesn't move higher and the market cracks, then it's a key support level that breaks, triggers a lot of stops, and then you'll get some further selling. And unfortunately on this guy, there's not a lot of support until you get right around here. And so if this breaks, you know, that's 20 to 30% lower before you get to another key support area. So you can see it's lined up to, where is it? You know, it's kind of right at that prior high back here. And so a little bit of a critical area for this one. See if it can hold. Nano. Haven't done Nano yet. Nano was looking so good up here and just really, I mean, has not been able to break out of this downtrend. Every rally has been contained so far at this moving average. And that's, you know, I guess the only positive is it, you know, it hit some oversold levels here on this RSI, went below 30. You're seeing a little bit of volume starting to come back in. If you go to the 4-hour chart, that's looking good, right? But it needs to really start confirming and showing some more strength and volume. This is the level I'd be watching here. This little zone, right? This was the prior resistance support. That's now resistance broke down. And so it needs to start getting back into this little box and showing some renewed strength. Near term, shorter term, it is looking good. This volume here is a big reversal. And so now it's kind of like in the pay attention to me mode, right? It's showing some good action off the lows. And so that's not bad. But the big picture, right, it's just fully retraced. So maybe it's done. But until it confirms, right, you got to be cautious with this one. Oh, let's see here. So we did, 0x. Did I do 0x? I think I did. I'm sure I did. That was on my list. If I didn't, let me know. VeChain. Yeah, VeChain's been good. So let's do the VeChain here. Again, one of the stronger names in the camp in terms of the tracking supply chain. I know they got a pharmaceutical kind of angle to them and all that, partnerships. But I talked about this one here a couple of weeks ago, and you can see where I had my support line. And I was talking about, we were looking at two things, this declining trend and this horizontal support. And I said, this is probably a descending triangle and it tends to break lower. So unless we saw a bounce right away, we're going to break lower. It looks like we're moving below that. Excuse me. And so I got to be cautious on this one. As much as I think the project's pretty good, it's just you got to be cautious because it's below a key support area and it's still below this declining trend line. And you could see the selling accelerate if it doesn't turn around here pretty quickly. And there's not a lot of support here, unfortunately. There weren't any prior bases. This thing had such a fast move higher that there's not a lot in terms of big bases, prior support. There's one way down here, but nobody wants to see you go that far down. So we'll see if this one can turn around, but I'm cautious on this guy. Already did 0x, did not do 0x. All right, I'll tell you what, I will cover 0x again towards the end. Just because I think it's pretty good. It's one of the stronger ones right now. Tethers. Oh, man. Somebody told me to invest in Tethers. Digibyte. Digibyte. You know, it's tried here as of late. It's really starting, tried to show some signs of life here. This is the daily chart. And you can see, right, you had the big spike there and you had some attempts here. So from that perspective, I think it's looking good. It's trying to put in a bottom here around the lows, but not, just not strong yet. And it's trying. That's really all I can say. I mean, the 4-hour chart looks a little bit better, right? Here's the volume, a little bit more detail showing up there. But kind of see some real big turnaround action. I mean, other than that, it's just kind of chopping its way here around the lows. And I know this was one of the darlings from a long time ago, but we'll see if this one ever can resume its uptrend again. But right now, it's just bounces off the lows, in my opinion. So this big trend breaks. At least it's going sideways now, but it's got to turn around. Digital. Where's that? Oh, wrong order. Here we go. Oh, it broke below that downtrend, that trend I was watching here. We'll see. It's still technically setting up a potential ascending triangle here. So you can look at that, and then you can see, this could set up the second higher low. I was watching a little bit more of a steeper angle. I was looking at this as the trend, and it just broke that. This would have been a nice low to hit, and then a breakout. That would have made for a very strong ascending triangle. It looks like it's breaking below that, and you can see the RSI is really starting to weaken out here. And so the good news is it's cooled off the RSI quite a bit, but it needs to hold this level here, and then that could set up for a little bit different of a ascending triangle pattern here, a little bit more of flatter, with this being the new base there. So I'd be watching this one still. I know this one had a big move off the lows, so that's still in play, but it's kind of shifted the trend there a little bit. So still kind of going sideways. If it holds here and it starts to bounce higher, then that'd be positive here. Let me scroll back. I think I missed a few. Covered ICX and Stellar. I'm liking Stellar. ICX is at a key fib level on a pullback. I still like it. It needs to hold here and really start to bounce. What do I expect in April? Up or down? Well, what day is it? It's March 31st. Okay, so then tomorrow's April. So technically then I expect down and then up. I think April will finish higher than it starts. Let's put it that way. Let's see if I'm right. Did you buy? We covered that. Factum. Man, there's a name from yesteryear. Look at the Factum. Man, it hasn't done a whole lot for quite some time. Just kind of back and forth in this range. Honestly, I've lost track of this project. Haven't followed it lately and not kept track of it. So I'm not sure if the development's still underway, if they're doing good stuff. Who knows? But from a technical perspective, like a lot of these, it's attempting to finally go sideways, put in a little bit of a base. You want to see this thing finally break that downtrend and move higher. And so, from a longer term perspective, it looks like it's coming off this, this December rally and just really pulling in. Hasn't really retraced as much as a lot of these other names have, has it? Yeah, it kind of did. I mean, it's 50%. That's pretty rough by any standards. So we'll see here. Let me zoom in a little bit. I'm looking at the 4-hour chart. Yeah, just way too choppy for my taste, honestly. Just kind of all over the place here. I've just not been following that one lately, guys. What are you planning to buy more now? Which one am I planning to buy more? I'm liking my favorites right now. And there, when I look at the longer term aspect, there's always there's different kind of strategies, right? Like Should you be more heavy BTC versus alts or vice versa? And I've been heavier the bigger cap names over the last couple months, but I'm thinking now I'm looking at smaller cap names, and I'm really liking the platforms, especially some of these that have come down quite a bit. I think any kind of protocols, platforms will continue to do well as this space develops. And so names like Neo, Eth, I'm really looking at now from a longer term perspective, just because it's pulled back. ICX, I like ICX. I'm watching here though, see if it can hold and turn around. I think from a longer term perspective, I think this one's found a pretty good low. Now we got to see some upside follow through, but this is a good platform protocol type of play. IOTA, maybe. Honestly, guys, I'm personally not sold on the whole Tangle system. See if they can pull it off. If they can, it'll be huge. If they can't, it was kind of like a nice try. But this one is a maybe. So that's kind of where I'm at in terms of the platforms are my more favorite names. I think the supply chain names are next on the list in terms of actual use case industry-wide. Anything decentralized is going to be bigger, I think, this year because of regulation and the big push there. So names like 0x, maybe District is a small cap flyer. That one's been moving as of late. We didn't cover DNT, but you can see there's some accumulation starting to show up on this one, and it's really come off the old highs and right back at the lows here. So looking at those. And then, you always got to, in my opinion, have some in kind of the pure currency plays, right? So Bitcoin, Litecoin, some Dash maybe now that it's pulled back here so far. It's right at $300 Dash. Man, $300. You can buy a master node now for 300K. There you go. And so, some of these names, but and then there's always the long shots, the highly speculative names that you definitely don't put like 50% of your holdings in, but maybe you take a shot at some of those, right? Some of the up and coming, the newer names, and those are the ones that it's kind of who knows, right? It could really go, and some of them are a little flashy, but we'll see. Golem, man, there's another name from yesteryear. DNT. This was another kind of distributed computing play that they had a good concept and all that, just never was able to recover from the big pullback. Had a pretty decent rally, but so did everything in December, and then this is just kind of really retraced. But we'll see. I'm not seeing any kind of big reversals here yet, but a lot of these names are starting to at least go flat and show some action. So this one's looking pretty good from a very shorter term perspective. But I mean, this big reversal at the top just goes to show you that a lot of these names too, you got to keep in mind the older names, older meaning like last year names, the older names, there's a lot of bag holders and people that have just sat on them for a long time. And so that's going to be huge overhead resistance. Anytime these things have any sort of a decent rally off the lows, I suspect these long-time holders are going to just sell into that. And until that overhead supply is done, then it may be a while before these rally, right? You contrast that with some of the newer projects, stronger names that don't have as much overhead. They will probably move faster, in my opinion. ICX, huge. Yeah. Civic. Yeah, Civic, another one that had that big pullback. See if it finally has found a low here. Civic. And sometimes too, guys, the project, the idea may be good, but the leadership is just kind of, and that'll kill the project too. The team could be good, but if the leadership is not, then that's unfortunately a problem. Looks like it may have found a low. It's trying to bottom out here. This is the daily chart. We had that big low that we put in here. December rallied, pretty much gave most of that up. But we'll see. It's really been going sideways here, kind of flat. But I haven't sensed a whole lot of enthusiasm around this one just yet. So the total market cap here, man, $263 billion. And so this one is back at some long time lows here. You can see the last real big base was at 176 level, the big peak, and then we're kind of in no man's land here in terms of market cap. Just continues to drive lower here. If you look at the alts, right, so the alts here is 150s, 140s or so, and so looking at that, but the trajectory is starting to shift a little bit, right? It was pretty steep fall here for quite some time. Looks like it's trying to turn here, but we need to see some more upside, some bounce. I still think a lot of these names have hit a low versus Bitcoin, if not the low, or some of these are getting real close. Not across the board yet, but you can see some of the names are really starting to find some lows here, but it's certainly not widespread yet, but I think we're getting close. Let me see, Neblio, I covered Neblio. There was a couple others here I wanted to talk about. He was asking about Monaco. So Monaco BTC. I don't know. These token cards, unfortunately, are going to have some headwinds, but this one looks like it's not quite touching that there. That was a pretty good low. It's just kind of drifting lower here. There was another one that was the what was that called? Centra? CTR, right? Yeah, Centra. And this one too was showing some pretty decent action off the lows last week. A lot of volume just out of nowhere. Look at that. We just had that big spike, just kind of giving it up though, pulling back quite a bit. But again, bullish divergence, potentially this could be a good double bottom if it finds some support here and then decides to rally off. So I've still got to keep an eye on these. A lot of these names that had that initial spike off the lows, I'm watching. But everything is still high risk. You know, just kind of not confirmed yet. Some of them have, but not all of them. NEM. Oh, NEM. Man, NEM had that big move last year and just really gave it up here. You know, I have mixed feelings about NEM. It just gotta. This one's tough. I mean, I don't know. They're doing some good things on the development side, but I don't know if it's gonna really take hold in terms of being a blockchain, a platform. So, but NEM, going to the 4 hours here, you know, you're seeing some interesting volume patterns here. Just there are some spikes here, some accumulation showing up here. So I'm keeping, you know, you got to watch it because did this last year, had that kind of way at the lows was showing this type of action, and you're seeing something similar here. So who knows? Maybe NEM has found a low, and we're gonna start to see some more action here. Storm, man, that one was taken off last week. How's that doing these days? Got to be careful with those names that are like overly hyped. Everybody wants them. Storm. So Storm has pulled back from the highs about 45% in the course of 3 or 4 days. So really gave up a lot of that move. But you got to keep in mind too, this thing was like hundreds of percents in no time. And so the profit taking showed up. A lot of people came in and started really selling that. Storm is like one of the blockchain based. It's like the Fiverr, right? Like the Upwork, you know, making money, freelancing. That's the word I was looking for, freelancing. And so we'll see where this one comes back to. Looking at a fib level on Storm, it looks like it is basically living at the 618 level now. So ideally, got to hold this level. Otherwise, that's just going to be too deep of a retracement. Also on the daily chart, sitting right at that moving average. Let me clear this fib level. But you can see it's pulled right back to that moving average. Volume's pretty quiet, relatively speaking, at least compared to this mega day that it had. And so I'd be watching it here. You know, if you like Storm, this is quite the retracement, but it's kind of a secondary entry if it's going to hold here. So I'd be watching it, but was a little hyped in my opinion. So we'll see if this one lasts. Again, young chart, very new pattern. So wouldn't take a whole lot to keep this one moving higher. Storm. Let me see here. Encash. How's that guy looking? That was looking good last week. Yeah, still looking pretty good on Encash. I'm liking this little consolidation it's putting in here. Not bad. You know, look at just kind kind of a little bit of a pennant forming there. Of course, these could break either way, but the fact that there's very little overhead resistance on this guy, younger chart, good volume patterns. I'm leaning bullish on this one, but you got to see some upside confirmation first. But not bad on this guy here. This one's looking pretty good here. Can't complain on the in cash. I think that's definitely one to put on the watch list. So we did Digix Dow. ARC. I haven't looked at ARC. ARC, you can see I was watching this one. It had the fake out breakout and couldn't do it. The thing with ARC is just such a low volume name. I mean, if you go to Bittrex, I get trades like, again, when I was watching it here last week, it was like 30 or 40 BTC a day. That's low volume, especially relative to some of the other names. Some of the other names trade, 100 BTC, 800 BTC a day. ARC has just been smaller. I know they're doing a lot of kind of recoding. They're basically rebuilding their code base, so they're not a strict fork out of Lisk, and so they're doing a lot of things. Very ambitious project, but I don't like this right here. Look at that volume is just low, right? Not even $1 million. That's too low. $200 million market cap. It goes both ways. I mean, if the volume comes in, it's not going to take a lot to move this thing, right? That's just the way it works. But looking at ARC longer term, right? It's kind of had this rally, this big picture consolidation. Let me go to the weekly chart here. You can see it's a little bit of an equilibrium pattern forming on this weekly. The higher lows, or the lower highs and the higher lows kind of coming in here. And so got to keep an eye on this one, especially with some of the development going on. But this was the range I was watching here a week ago. Had a little bit of a breakout, reversed, and couldn't really hold. And now it's below this support zone I was watching. So I'm not doing anything with the ARC just yet. Oh, let me see here. I just got an alert. Fun apparently is doing something. A little bit of a spike there on the fun fair. A lot of volume came in here for whatever reason, but yeah, this one too, just big pullback after that huge run it had, and it's just right back to kind of like the December levels now. So we'll see. It's kind of going sideways. See if we can find a low. You've seen some volume spikes there, maybe some supports coming in. I would imagine there's some bag holders here that are going to sell into a lot of these, and that's the challenge with so many of these names that have had the big pullback is people that have been holding it from January. They're gonna want out, and they're gonna sell some of these names into some of that resistance. Look at that. Someone hit the market button, oops, and then they sold it, oops. Aeon. Let's see here. So this one's come. So I got you can see I put this yellow line down here. It might be hard to see. This one's basically retraced fully, right? I mean, just back to the exchange debut price, had that rally, and then just kind of slowly drifted lower. Looking right at the low at the same price. You saw this massive volume spike out of nowhere, and then just has been kind of meandering its way. But the volume has come back in. This is another one of those names where here in recent days, just a lot of volume's coming back in. And so I'm watching this one. This one's kind of interesting to see if we can get some action here. But right now, there's not a lot of buy signals that I use. But I've been watching that volume accumulation on Aeon, just kind of sitting tight, going sideways here, right at the lows. Pivx. I think what's the price on Pivx USD? Pivx USD is at $3.54. So there you go, guys. For less than $36,000, you can buy a Pivx master node. And looking at Pivx, I mean, it's interesting to see this one right back at that level. That's a pretty key level here. You look at that big base it had last year that it broke out of, right? And it's basically right back in that box. So it needs to hold here. Pivx, real similar action to Dash in terms of the retracement here. But let me go Pivx BTC. Oh, this is the Binance here. Let me go to the Bittrex. Pivx Bittrex, just because it's got more history. Don't I have it on here? Yeah, there it is. So let me go to the 4 hour, and interesting. A little bit of volume coming in here. Man, look at those wicks, though. What's the volume on this guy? It's about 2 million a day between all the exchanges here. And looks like it's relatively split there, Binance Bittrex. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I always pay attention when I see these kind of big volume spikes, but they got to follow through. Otherwise, good news is this one's living above this 10 EMA now, pausing, a little bit of constructive action showing up here. So not bad. Not bad on Pivx. Needs to hold up, though. Let's see here. I'll do a few more, guys, and then I'm going to go back to the biggies. We did Cardano. Let me take a quick look at that. I know some folks have joined and some folks have gone, so we'll rehash a few of the bigger names just to kind of cover some more here. But let me go through Cardano. So I'm liking Cardano here. This is the level I'm watching. Good volume coming in, pulling back here. If you go to the 4 hour charts, looks like it's trying to turn the corner again here after having that nice pullback here, and just looking good here. The last couple 4 hour bars is starting to march higher. It cleared some very near-term resistance right around here. You can see a rally right up to that, pause, and then broke through on some good volume. And so that one's looking pretty good. I still think this is hit a longer-term low here, and just, we're waiting to see some upside confirmation. But all in all, it's looking pretty good. So from a longer-term perspective, I think Cardano's looking pretty good. I haven't done sub. I'll do sub. I did Tron. I'll skip Tron again. I won't do that one again. But sub, very nice. Interesting here. Looking, there's a lot of selling here showing up at the top, but it's pausing. It's building a little bit of a base in and around there. And I'm going to the 4 hour chart on sub. Yeah, that's really the range to watch. I mean, it's kind of right in the middle of this range here, near term. This would be an early signal. Getting above this on a closing basis here. If we can start to turn the corner, then maybe we'll be retesting this high that we saw a couple of weeks ago. So we'll see. Interesting here. Not a bad pattern here at the lows, though. It's trying to put in a pretty good base here. Proof of authority. Honestly, I don't know about these names. Proof of Authority Network. You could tell some engineers came out with that one, and I'm an engineer. I can say that. But yeah, this one has had some good action off the lows here. A lot of accumulation showing up. Very new chart, a younger one. You can see we're basically still below this exchange debut price, right? And marching higher, put in a little bit of consolidation right below. I think this one's still going to go higher personally. I think it has some more upside momentum, but I don't like this near-term divergence that you're seeing, and you can see it's finally starting to play catch up here with the price. You were marching higher, marching higher, marching higher. RSI was getting weaker, and we've broken the trend here. You can see the price is really starting to break trend, and I think you're going to see a little bit more pullback first before it goes higher. So we did Verge. I think Verge is looking pretty good here, one of the stronger ones. Verge setting up. That's the level I'm watching on Verge. It's kind of forming a little bit of a cup kind of base here. Just stair-stepping its way higher here the last couple of days. And so on the 4-hour chart, if it breaks above that 570 area or so, especially with some decent volume coming in on a closing basis, this one's looking pretty good. So definitely got to keep an eye on this one. Longer term, it's looking a lot more positive. Now it's living above that 10 EMA on the daily, has been up there for a little over a week now versus Bitcoin. RSI is getting back into the bull zone here, trying to break above that 60. You can see my momentum index has had it in the bull zone for about a week now. So all around, Verge is actually looking pretty good versus BTC here. It looks like it wants to break out. In my opinion, I think it probably will. So we did 0x. Some of you guys are asking me to do it again. 0x BTC here. Let me go to the daily chart again. Another one that's been moving higher off the lows, good volume action coming in. I know some of this was a reaction to the Coinbase news, and you're seeing this pullback, but I like the pullback. Very constructive. You can see when it pulled back right to the moving average. Look at the sell volume on this guy. I mean, minimal sell volume. And here it is trying to bounce off of that moving average now. Looks like it wants to start moving higher. If you go to the 4-hour chart, it's just looking pretty good all around here. This is versus BTC. So I'm watching this one. Got to keep an eye on this one here, starting to show some positive action again. Now we got to see some follow through. Stratus. I haven't done Stratus. Nobody asked about Stratus. GVT. I'll do that one next. So looking at Stratus here, you can see by the lines, I was keeping an eye on this one here, but I'm not doing anything with this one yet. Just kind of waiting this one out. It's kind of been all over the place. It had this nice rally off the lows, was setting up very nice. Since pulling in, now the thing to watch is this one here. Maybe comes down a little bit more, forms a double bottom here, and that's going to be the level to be watching on Stratus. See if we can form a low. But at this point, there is no low established yet. This is kind of the first test. We're forming maybe either a higher low, or if we get a washout, maybe a double bottom with some bullish divergence. But notice this trend. I mean, we're seeing a lot of these very similar type patterns where you've got this low, this initial bounce, another low. And I'm seeing this pattern show up a lot, which just tells me that a lot of these alts versus BTC are starting to pause the downtrend, right? They're at least starting to find a place where the buyers are stepping in, the support's coming in, or the sellers are finally getting exhausted here. And so keeping an eye on those, but there's no buy confirmation just yet, in my opinion. Nothing yet. This is Vision. So this one has been one of the stronger names. What is this? The brokerage, how do I say it? The brokerage kind of not certification, let's use their terminology. The trust management market, the private trust management markets. But pretty interesting. But the chart, no doubt, is looking pretty good here. Has had that nice rally. Just look at these bases it's been putting in. Just good action there. Breaks out, putting in a little bit of a base here right now. Some selling pressure starting to show up. You've seen a little bit of sell volume coming in here in the near term, but all around, not bad. What I'm looking at here in the near term on the 4-hour chart, it tried earlier today. Got to close above that. You can see it broke out and just kind of pulled back in. Big wick at the top with the volume, so that's a lot of sellers. See if we can get above that again. But this one's looking pretty good. It's on the big picture, though, the daily chart. That's a strong chart. Probably one of the stronger ones here versus BTC. Just has not been moving downward like most of these others. All right, let me see here. Ethereum Classic, is that about to break out? Let's see. We didn't take a look at that one. Poor Ethereum Classic. Oh man, let's see here. This one, gosh, this one's fully retraced. And so, guys, I totally sympathize with the reason this was created, or this was, I wouldn't say created, right? It's the original chain, but I could see why this had the backing that it did. Totally sympathize. It was controversial, no doubt. But with that said, I'm not a believer in the Ethereum Classic long term. I'm sorry to say. I mean, you could just see it, right? I mean, it's just broken relative to ETH and is not kept up. And so here we are, kind of at this longer term support level versus the dollar around 13. I don't see any kind of breakout action here. Just still looks like it's trying to find a low, and there's not a lot of bullishness versus BTC here near term. This is the 4-hour, seeing a little bit of volume. Wouldn't say it's quite the breakout yet, but it's trying. It's trying to find a low. F. F I'm liking. I think this one's looking much better versus BTC. The action showing up here, trying to find a low, finally trying to buck the trend here. You can see versus Bitcoin. I'm thinking this one's going to have a nice counter trend rally, but this is the level to watch. Look at where the wall has been, right? Just hits this moving average and bounces right to that. And I think the key is going to be watching the USD pair personally. That's the level that I'll be watching to take my cues on and seeing if we can turn around here in the near term, right? It's tried. It had that nice little rally, but just sold into that. So a lot of folks, or not, I didn't sell into that, but a lot of folks that was sold into that little rally. So got to keep an eye on it. I think it's at a near term or a longer term low or getting close, but until we get that confirmation, got to wait. Oh, let's see here. Dragon. Let's go to the dragon on the KuCoin. I got the dragon here. Man, this one's fully retraced the move, but it's trying to find a pretty good low here. Actually, a lot of volume came in here right at the lows. Maybe it's done. What's dragon on the price point here? Dragon. $150 million market cap down to around 63 cents. So well off the highs. I think it was at $3 or $4 at one point. Yeah, close to $5 at one point. But looking like maybe it's found a low. Gonna keep an eye on this one, see if it can break above that moving average near term. But not bad. It looks like it maybe has found a little bit of a double bottom. We've seen this in the past with some of these names, though. So, caution must remain until they confirm. You can see it tried here. Right, it's kind of finding a low. Couldn't break. Had this low, rallied right into that resistance. So until it starts to really confirm, and that's kind of a ways out still. It needs to move a good 25%, right, before it really starts to confirm. But right now, near term's holding some support at least. Let's go to the 4-hour charts. Big volume there at the lows, but not quite ready yet. Wabi. Let's take a look at the Wabi versus BTC. So looking at Wabi daily, man, this trajectory to the downside is really starting to accelerate here on Wabi. It's clearly below the kind of the exchange debut price, ICO price, however you want to call it. But man, when I start to see this, right, with this kind of exponential movement, this curving action tells me that the low is near, but it's just a matter of where. Man, this one's really giving up market cap too. $28 million market cap, trades about $691 million or 691K a day, 24 hours. So Wabi, man, just could not find a low, unfortunately. Not quite there yet. It's tried, but nothing. All right, let's see here. Let's do a couple more. Vibe. So this one, I know it's not Vibe, but this one I was watching earlier just because some big volume coming in here at the lows. So got to keep an eye on this one. But looking at Vibe, I did cover this one earlier. Had that, that big volume spike and just really got on my radar, but just have not seen any follow through. And if you see, the lower time frames, right, I had that big move last week, just kind of sitting quiet here. Got to see some more action showing up on the upside. It's trying to put in a low, but not really following through yet. Komodo. Haven't looked at this one in a while. So looking at the KMD. Komodo. What's the value on this guy? $252 million market cap. And it had that huge move last year. Kind of, this was one I was really watching a lot last year. Never really did anything. Got off my radar. And then in December, just went to gangbusters here and went all the way up to, what is that? Almost $13. Here we are, 240. So way down from the longer term perspective, but versus Bitcoin. See, and I know this got added to Binance later. It was on Bittrex for the longest time. So looks like it may be fighting a little bit of a low here. Here's a daily, just crazy action here we saw. What's the so many of these have retraced fully, just crazy. And this is another one too. I've not kept track with this project, but fully retraced back to the 786 level. That's that's a big pullback here, but looks like it's trying to find a low. Looks like it maybe has found a little bit of a low, turning the corner. Again, smaller volume name, so it doesn't take a lot to move these. $1 million. I mean, if it gets any kind of announcement or any kind of action, these tend to just really take off. Z Classic, yeah, I saw that thing, man. Z Classic has those crazy moves. Oh, did that a couple of weeks ago too. It's just this one's dead, right? Oh, Z Classic. Dent. So Dent is the telecon play, right? If I'm remembering that one correctly. And that's the data distribution, mobile blockchain data, right? Where you can, like the marketplace, if you will, where you can buy and sell data. I don't know. They've got a tall task, in my opinion. That's a big order. A lot of non-blockchain established players there that could very easily go this direction and kind of make this one irrelevant. But who knows? Looking at the charts, I mean, it just has really pulled back quite a bit. I'm not personally sold on the idea here, but looking at the near-term action, why is this looking so ugly on here? Now it's the volume. But it does look like it's trying to find a low here in the near term and just kind of breaking out. And I'd be watching this level here near term. Let me go back to the daily charts. Yeesh, sorry about that. Those ugly, those wicks are just really throwing it off. There you go. And that's really the level to watch. If it's trying to turn the corner here, near term is going sideways, and that's really the upside, which is also the 26 EMA on the daily, right there. And it needs to break out here, 146 or so. That's the level to be watching on dips. Okay, I'm going to do a few more. Let me hop back to the BTC, and we will have to wrap this one up. So looking at Bitcoin, this is on Binance. We know it broke that trend. I'm watching the action near term. Feels like just a little bit of a bounce at this point. I either want to see some closing above 72, 7,300, or I'm going to be looking for a little bit of selling pressure over the next day or two. And that's what I'm going to be keeping an eye on here. But if it looks like Bitcoin bottoms out, I'm actually looking at some of the other names in terms of stronger potential. And so very quickly, some of the names that I did mention right at the start. So I've already talked ETH long-term at a very key support level, in my opinion. So we'll see if it can follow through and bounce off that. IOTA right at the dollar mark needs to bounce off of that. NEO, $50, $45 range, in and around there. Want to see that one. Some of the stronger names. So ZRX, covered that one. Looking like it had a pretty decent pullback, especially on the daily chart. You can see it very quiet volume pullback. One to watch going into the next week. Looks like it wants to start moving higher. Verge has been pretty good here. So this one looks like it wants to try to break out. Keep an eye on Verge. Lumens have been acting nice here. Setting up a little bit here on the 4-hour. Had that big breakout and letting this moving average catch up. Just sitting tight, pausing right below this resistance here. And so got to keep an eye on the lumens. I covered SMT. Like it wants to break out, had that move higher and just sitting tight. And so this one is setting up pretty good here. And there was a couple more here. ZRX, covered Salt. I covered ICX. Needs to bottom out here, in my opinion, because it's at a key level on the pullback scale, right at the 618 level. So we got to bounce here relatively soon, or that wedge there is getting pretty tight. So that selling pressure is going to really start to build. And Binance Coin and the BNB, of course. And so that one's been very strong. Looks like a little bit of a cup and handle type of thing showing up here on the 4-hour chart. Watch for a breakout above that on the USD scale. It pulled right back to support, and it's looking like it wants to start moving off of that. So let me go to Binance on USD. Pulled right back to the breakout point, sitting above the moving average here on the daily chart. So that one's looking pretty good. So that's kind of my short list, watch list. I need to see some follow through on a lot of these names. We talked Nano as well. Nano is looking like it wants to try here. Got to keep an eye on it because it had that big volume move off the lows. Now we got to see some follow through on Nano. All right. I didn't cover power. I didn't cover a few of those guys. I know you. I probably missed a few names, so I apologize. But a lot of these very similar pattern. Power is looking pretty good here from a divergence perspective, kind of going sideways, but we got to see some follow through too, right? This one you can argue is a little bit of a descending triangle bear pennant here at the lows, so it's got to break trend here relatively soon, or you'll see a break of that support. So, and a lot of these are looking this way, where they're at least going sideways versus BTC. Now we got to see some more upward movement. So, all right, I think that's it for charts. I'm gonna scroll through here real quickly. I want to make sure I don't. I'm gonna just see if I can answer some question. Let you guys get to your basketball game. All right, I think I've answered most of these guys. So cool. Well, thanks for joining, everybody. Appreciate you joining another live stream. My next video will probably just be a regular market update video, and probably won't come out until Monday. And so we'll see what happens over the next couple of days. Again, the levels to watch on BTC. 72, 7,300 on the upside here on the short term. Of course, this moving average on the daily, which is way up here at 77. And of course, on the downside, if we do snap and break lower, then around 6K is really the level to watch. So that's it for today, guys. Appreciate everybody joining. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, rest of your weekend. Till next time, take care, everyone.